Why does it feel like so many media outlets discovered CBD in the past year?
Media, including Consumer Reports, descended upon the CBD space within the last year, and there's a very good reason for it, because CBD starts showing up everywhere. It starts showing up in coffee bars, in brownies, and candy and things. CBD is a compound found in cannabis plants, including hemp, and marijuana plants.
CBD is like a scatter shot. There's a whole bunch of different systems that it's influencing, one of which is the endocannabinoid system, but lots of others as well. So this is why you see something that works for anxiety, potentially for pain, potentially for pediatric seizures, right? A wide host of things, because there's a wide number of different mechanisms that it hits.
The scientific research has lagged, particularly in the area of CBD.
Most of the research that's been done has been on THC, which is delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. And that is the primary psychoactive molecule in the plant that's responsible for feeling high. More recently, probably past 5 to 10 years, has there been focused on CBD, or cannabidiol. That's kind of the second most abundant molecule in the plant. And it really came out of, grassroots, if you will, of people trying it out on the ground in Colorado, in other countries, in England, trying it out and seeing that it actually helped with pediatric epilepsy, which was kind of where it got its initial buzz.
One of the ways that I stayed sane, honestly, for the decade I tried to keep my son alive was research. And so I actually had heard about cannabis for epilepsy.
For me, when I take it, it calms the anxiety. Or if I start to feel a headache coming on or a migraine.
It seemed very natural that Consumer Reports wanted to step in and try to understand, what is this market? What are these products? What do the labels say that they are? Are they safe? Are they tested? Do they work? And how much are they? And who's regulating them? And that's where we entered into this conversation.
Now, despite promising anecdotal evidence, we actually know very little about cannabidiol because there is limited research. And as the chairman mentioned, what we learned was a conflict between the Department of Justice and the Department of Health, which prevented that research being done because it was a Schedule I drug.
Is CBD legal?
So the crazy answer to that is it depends. Is CBD legal? It depends on where you live. How strange is that? Can you imagine not being able to buy Tylenol in Ohio, but you can buy it in Indiana? That is sort of what we're talking about. And we don't always understand what's the real world application, like flying with CBD. It seems like in a state where it's legal that you should be able to get on a plane, but you may not really want to do that until it becomes federally legal.
What would Consumer Reports like to see happen in the CBD space to protect consumers?
Sure. So the most important thing that would protect consumers is clear regulatory environment, alignment between the states and the federal government on all things, including just the legality of possession and sales, how products are manufactured, how products are tested, how products are sold, how products are labeled. And we'd also like to see more research in this space so that the consumer has some assurance that purchasing that product will actually help treat the symptom that they're seeking.
My son Zakai started having seizures when he was 4 months old, and he had had over 500,000 seizures by the time he was 5. And we had been through 17 pharmaceuticals. He has a rare catastrophic form of early childhood epilepsy. And he transitioned to hospice, palliative services.
Were you mentally preparing yourself for his death?
Yeah, as a mom, and being faced with what the situation was, and just on Facebook, they do this memory thing that pops up, and it was his EEG. That was December of 2011, which was right before we started this. And his EEG is an electrical scan of the brain, and he was having seizure activity every 10 seconds. And so you their little bodies and their little brains just can't keep doing that. But also, you don't quit. You never quit. You can't. No one else is gonna fight. And so at the same time of trying to accept things the way that they was the necessity to make sure that that didn't happen. Back then it was, CBD and honey. And so I gave him his first dose just in the mouth like you'd give a baby Tylenol. So it's a liquid. He's not smoking anything. And his seizures didn't start. He fell asleep. And 2 minutes pass and 10 minutes pass and his seizures didn't start. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. And he didn't have a seizure for 48 hours. And they returned. They were less frequent. They were less severe, but his seizures came back. And so we just slowly titrated up, just like we've done for the previous decade of everything that we've tried. So Zakai was almost 10 years old and incontinent and didn't know his colors and couldn't write his name and had very, very poor memory. So, where he was at was he was very developmentally delayed.
And where is he now?
He is 15 years old. He's toilet trained. He's learning sight words, so he knows his alphabet. He's learning how to read. He can do basic addition. He's hysterical. He's so funny. He's so sensitive and cares about how you're feeling. He's in a lot of ways, very typical, 15-year-old boy. He's talking about his house he's going to get and how I'm not going to live with him. It's just absolutely incredible. It's amazing.
We're here in the foothills of Appalachia. We're on the edge of the coal fields, so we don't have vast acres to farm. We have limited acreage, so we need to have a high-value crop, a high-quality crop that we can grow, basically for a cash crop.
When you talk to people who don't know anything about hemp and don't know anything about CBD, how do you kind of begin to tell them about it?
People know that I'm growing this crop, and a lot of them they automatically assume you're growing medical marijuana. That's your first thing you have to educate people is this is not medical marijuana. It's hemp. Medical marijuana is still illegal in the state of Kentucky. So this is industrial hemp, but it does produce CBD. We've been primarily a tobacco farm. The tobacco industry, of course, as everyone knows, is in decline. So we've always been looking for alternatives. So 3 years ago, we grew our first hemp crop, and we thought this is something that could really fit in our operation and something we could produce that we would be proud to be producing, that be Kentucky grown, and like I said, if you can grow something that can help a kid with epilepsy, I mean that's just huge. It's a great feeling. So when we harvest, it's much like tobacco. We actually go in and we hand cut it. We take it and we dry it in some dryers we have here on the farm. Once we dry it, we actually separate the leaf and bud material from the stalk. And that's actually the material that we have that we sell. And then of course the bud material is where the CBD is at, and that'll go to an extractor, and that's where the CBD will be extracted from the bud material. I feel like next year that there'll probably be more demand for hemp than what there are farmers to produce it next year, is my feeling.
What makes you say that?
Just because of the emerging markets, they can't sit idle. So, next 3 or 4 years, I think demand is there for hemp production.
I've covered pharmaceutical medications and over-the-counter medications and supplements for over 15 years, and I have never seen any product that both has medical benefit for very difficult to treat conditions, that also may have a supplement benefit for conditions like anxiety, insomnia, pain, and that also may be used in a recreational space.
Is there any interest as a possible alternative or weaning mechanism for opioid addiction?
Yes. There are a number of studies that are going on that are looking at the interaction between both THC and CBD in relation to opiates, and trying to see if there are some ways of curbing opiate use But not just opiates. National Institutes of Drug Abuse funded a study looking at CBD and tobacco nicotine addiction. There's been work that's looked at cocaine addiction. So all of those things, I think there's potential. There's theory that makes sense within this space, and we'll see what happens with the research. I think it's pretty exciting.
When I look back on that time period where I was on a lot of medications, I actually had so many that my medicine cabinet was just a bunch of yellow bottles prescribed by the VA. I served active duty in the Navy for 4 years. We stepped on board the USS Harry S. Truman for her maiden voyage, and we're the relieving battle group for the USS Cole. I was injured on board the Truman, actually. Right off the bat, I tripped over the catch wire, carrying roughly 180 pounds worth of tie-down chains. So I basically destroyed my left knee and my lower back simultaneously.
When were you first prescribed opioids or opiates?
In 2000, when I destroyed my knee.
And for how long did you take them?
13 years.
Did they work?
To an extent. After a certain point, you get moved from one type of opioid to another. So I had gone from basically naproxen to tramadol to Vicodin and Oxy, and in the end, I was taking morphine tablets. And for me, looking back, my mental state it was like I was there, but I wasn't. It was just like a shell of me. Hi, here's Veronica, but she's not present. She's faking it. So when I made an appointment with my primary care physician at the time, she actually recommended that I go out and get a card for medical marijuana and see if that was effective for me.
And how high did you feel?
I was pretty out of it for a while. And that was one of the effects that I really didn't like about marijuana. So I talked to some of the dispensaries about, what can I do to kind of mitigate this feeling? And they had actually suggested trying pure CBD from the hemp plant.
And did you feel relief immediately with the CBD?
I didn't really feel relief right away. But I felt like after about 30 days of consistently taking it, I started to feel normal again.
And how do you feel now, today?
I feel alive. I don't feel like the world is coming down on top of me anymore. And for me, that's big.
I think the important thing to understand, and I think the hard part, is the disconnect between how much is in those bottles at a dispensary or that you order online and how much is required for a clinical effect. Now, some people say, I use 10 milligrams and I feel wonderful. And again, there's no clinical data to support that. If you wanted to dose like you're seeing in the clinical trials where you actually see separation from placebo, it's a lot. So a few examples: social anxiety, 600 milligrams a day, that's a lot. Adults with osteoarthritis of the knee or other types of pain, 500 to 1,000, depending on the study. So, you're not in the tens. And if you look at the bottles, like some of the bottles, it's like this whole bottle is 500 milligrams, right? So you're drinking that bottle in a day, and that's a lot.
The interesting thing, about 1 out of every 4 Americans has tried CBD. That's according to a nationally representative survey that Consumer Reports just completed. The majority of people told us CBD was effective for the problem they were trying to treat.
A solution to what? What are they hoping to solve?
Sure. So one of the most common reasons people have tried CBD is pain management and anxiety and insomnia.
I've always loved to be outside, so I've always hiked and jogged and walked, and running is just a great way to get outside, get in the woods. It's a great way to start the day. Feels like every day is a vacation. We can get out and run before work, after work. I try to run 6 days a week, and I had a tendonitis of my other foot and also my knee. I've had a knee tendonitis, and so I did the normal things: rest, ice. It didn't help, and then my friend lent me some CBD, and I didn't really intend to use it, and But it was there, and I had a couple days, my tendonitis was still there, and I used it, and it went away immediately, I was surprised, and so then I've started using it when I've had tendonitis, and it seems to work.
And you've only used a topical ointment?
Yes.
Why haven't you tried tinctures?
I think mostly what I've seen people use them for is anxiety and sleep disturbance, which I don't think I suffer from. So I haven't really had I don't have any other inflammatory other than the local inflammation, and that's pretty rare, so I don't feel I've really needed anything. I'm also a little nervous, a little apprehensive. I don't, the topical seems like totally safe to me. The tincture, I'd like to see more information.
Do you worry at all about trusting what's in that bottle?
Yes, for sure. I think that at least what I've read about CBD is that's the biggest concern, is what's in it, who's manufacturing it, where it comes from. And I think with a lot of supplements, when patients, I have many patients who take supplements, and I tell them, I think that especially pregnant patients, that's big risk always, is that what's in it, things that don't have to be added to the label. I think that's the scary part of supplements.
We wanted to do a study to really look at CBD products that were out on the market, be it, CBD oils in containers, vape oils, anything really that was, liquid CBD, to see what does the market look like. And really the point is, how accurately labeled are these products? And in this study, 70% or so of products were mislabeled. Some containing more CBD than was labeled, and some containing less CBD that was labeled. But a lot of products also contain THC or other cannabinoids in there that weren't necessarily on the labels at all. So beyond, I'm getting less of the drug or more of the drug than I expect, but I'm also getting some other things in there that I might want to be avoiding. And so from a consumer standpoint, it was a bit alarming. I think it's very important to be a skeptic in this space, especially when we're talking about this much money being spent in this space. And I think it's important to, be realistic about what we know and our approach to this. And I really think bifurcating the people that are there for medicinal use because they have an issue that can't be currently addressed with existing medications, and the wellness crowd. I think we really need to differentiate those two crews, and I think right now it's kind of getting blended a bit. And I could see that as frustrating from the medicinal crowd, because they're like, hey, we're trying to, get this medicine or do whatever, and things are getting marketed for more of the wellness crowd in some instances. So I think it's a pretty difficult space right now.
At the same time, you are hopeful as a researcher and see great potential?
I do. But I'm not the one that's going to go out there and say, it cures everything, because I think and even seeing it in pediatric epilepsy or seeing it in anxiety, it works for some and it doesn't work for others. And figuring that nuance out is really important, but I think its therapeutic potential is pretty wide-ranging.